Hello and welcome to the first episode of Alan Develops. Here I'm going to try to do something that it's not quite an outline and it's not quite just brainstorming. It's a little bit of both. I'm going to be developing an adventure that I'm going to be running for GenCon. If you don't know what GenCon, it's a convention that's held in Indianapolis. It's games and costumes and fun stuff that happens there. I get to meet some people that I only see once a year, essentially, at that convention. And people have a good time there. And I'm going to be running a game for Dungeons and Dragons. And if you're not into Dungeons and Dragons, don't worry. This is a generic role-playing game, research and/or writing that we're going to be accomplishing here. Nothing's going to be too technical. We're going to simply try to get a handle on the characters involved. A little bit of background. The title is Escape from Carceri. Carceri is essentially a prison plane of existence in Dungeons and Dragons. It holds a terrible doom at the very core of it, a doom called Thazadun, who will try to destroy the universe if allowed to break free. Not getting too much into it, but the game isn't going to go there, although they will get to visit the island where Thazadun wages a phantom war against unseen enemies that exist wholly in his mind, and that's the prison he's trapped in. But in turn, he is trapped in a prison of multiple layers that go all the way to the very threshold of no, they don't use the astral sea anymore. Anyway, Carceri is a prison plane. It's a plane of existence. You can get in, but you can't leave. At least there's some very specific rules on who can leave and when you can leave. And the truth is that the more powerful that an individual is, the more difficult it is for them to leave Carceri. And in this case, all the characters are going to be at level 20, which in Dungeons and Dragons is the highest level that you can obtain. This is going to be a flat-out power-mad character revelry for most of the players who come to the table. And as such, I need to have things defined out for them, because we're not going to have weeks, months, or years to develop these characters in harmony with one another, to develop their backstories and everything else. We're going to have 6 hours at a convention to get this going and done with, and make it enjoyable. So, there are 6 of them. There's 6 powerful personages that are trapped in the prison plane. For entirely unconnected reasons, they didn't all show up at once. That would be too convenient. They were going to have to pursue a joint exit strategy, because no one of them will be able to, excuse me, will be able to escape on their own. And we'll go from, I'm going to do a little social engineering. It's going to be a horseshoe setup for the table, social engineering, and we're going to have the bard, paladin, rogue, wizard, monk, cleric, no. Cleric, paladin, rogue, monk, wizard. Alright. See, these are the people who are going to be sitting together. They'll be adjacent to whoever they're adjacent to, and those at the edges will be adjacent to me. Essentially kind of more separated on their own, but that makes sense with the characters involved. Alright, so first of all, we have a paladin. Paladins are holy warriors who have a direct and divine link to a deity of some sort that gives them normally a variety of powers. However, this particular paladin was cast down by a corrupted order of light and reason. You know what? What I need to do? I need to enlarge all of this for everyone who's watching, because I am not going to be silly this time. Alright. Let's go 36. Too big. 30. Yeah, fuck it. Alright, so a paladin cast down into this prison. he's thrown there because death would have sent their soul um, to their God in heaven and spoiled the show because that the truth would have come out. Um, so they've been sent here instead. For if you die in Carceri, your soul doesn't go anywhere. It's a prison. Nothing escapes. Nothing should escape. If something could easily escape, it would have done so already for the most part. There are exceptions to that, but those are in turn exceptional. He's not been here long. In Carceri, he's cut off from his or her deity, and they're not technically fallen because there's a way you can become a fallen paladin. You essentially become a fighter with some sad stories to tell, there you go. But essentially, they're on sabbatical for what it is worth. They're going to act as a fighter, and they'll have a few special abilities like the ability to lend health and a couple other things. But for the most part, they're going to be acting as a fighter in this one, albeit one with who is both lawful and good, and idealist. Yeah, I think we can say idealist. We're also going to have the High Cleric of a Nigh Forgotten God, Hislin of the Gaps. Is one of three deities whose very essence was used to bound Thazadun in on the island at the very bottom of things. And these deities were used against their will or otherwise. Hislin is the only one that has apparently woken up. There's the dead god, a god of dead things, like really dead things, like things that were once alive but are totally dead, who forms the basis of the of how Thazadun is chained to the reality. Dead god is dead, can't come up. Hislin is of the gaps. He's the links that tie Thazadun, that bind them to the dead god. And then there's another one who is essentially the manacles, or how Thazadun is bound up, but we're not going to get into that. It'll be for the backstory that the certain players might see, but there'll be secrets they hold that may or may not be useful in the adventure that will be put together, that I still have to put together. I mean, I know where I want it to go, I just simply haven't crafted it to that extent. All right. The cleric was born to cultist paradise intended for sacrifice. Fate intervened by Hinslin's cries, and the cleric listened and learned and escaped. And now they preach and prophesize, oddly happy knowing that eventually they're going to have to move on. They're going to have to leave Carceri, and then they're going to be all but cut off from their deity. But you've got to do it. You can't stay in the prison forever. We also have a callback to one of the previous adventures that I wrote and ran for GenCon. It's an epic rogue who last we saw him. He was helping a group of from Mechanus and Celestia and the Nine Hells, all the lawful side of things, who had bound together to fight off an attempt by a demon to destroy all reality by driving to the very bottom of the abyss and finding perhaps the shard that was there. This rogue was instrumental in making sure that didn't happen, although was doing it for self-serving reasons, in order to retake their lost throne. And it didn't work. They didn't retake their throne. They were instead thrown into the ultimate prison in the hopes that would hold them. No, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. There's a monk who came to Carceri. For the unique advantage of Carceri is a non-entropic realm. At least it should have been. Nothing is supposed to decay there. When it was set up, it was perfect and flawless, and then, of course, people and stuff started slipping in through the edges, through the shallowing that transfers Carceri, the shores, so to speak, that stuff that gets washed ashore in Carceri. And for that matter, Thazadun himself occasionally emits a terrible cries and transforming the howling winds of madness that sweep through Carceri from time to time, inflicting some degree of entropy on the realm. And but Aside from that, if you're in a place where the winds can't touch, yeah, you can pretty much study as you like. And the monk took advantage of that to reach the pinnacle of monkdom, of the timeless elegance of self. All right. They're ready to leave, though. We have a wizard, also. A wizard who was once a mighty angel, one of the 12 who guarded Thazadun's island. This particular angel was formed at the very beginning by Ao, the Alpha and Omega god, who was later removed from all existence and erased in some ways by other things that happened. But the angel remembered who they were there and why they were there, and was a pitiless sentinel for to protect the island from anyone who would try to intrude upon Thazadun's rest. Essentially, cultists who would attempt to rouse him and end the world, the universe, in return for whatever. You know, the cultists are mostly kind of crazy. But there was an embedded command that forced them to don mortal flesh and be born to this realm to live and grow and learn the magics that were needed in the land beyond. Now, with free will, there's ever so much that is possible. Kind of interesting. And then we get to one of the more interesting characters, a bard who was once part of an insane court of the First Great Empire, where sanity was thin and decadence was the rule. When the doom came and the emperor realized that he and his precious court would be thrown in Carceri for their crimes, well, you can't be thrown in Carceri if you are already there. So the emperor transported himself and his court to the prison first. That was ages ago. Everyone died except the bard, who doesn't understand why he lived. And though a little mad, has decided that fun time is over, he'd like to go and learn some new songs and drink beer that didn't taste of mushrooms for once. Alright, so I need to connect these characters. Now, some of them are going to be easy. For example, the paladin and rogue. Known quantities. They know each other, sort of, by reputation. Reputation, them. That doesn't necessarily mean they can trust each other, but the paladin believes the best in people, and the rogue knows the paladin. He knows he's a paladin. He or she is a paladin, and can therefore be trusted. Because it's a paladin. All right, that's the easiest connection. The cleric and the paladin what is their connection? I think we'll go with deities and details. Islan, cleric, they can trust the paladin, and the paladin advocates for as he can respect, as they can respect. Because the characters are not defined as male, female at this point. They're not even defined by race in terms of elf, dwarf, human, what have you. They are for the player to decide who they are in the grand scheme of things. There is no bonus or penalty for being of a particular, being a dwarf or being a human, other than the fact that you can, as a dwarf, you could fit into some smaller places, or as a halfling, you could squeeze into a lot of different bits. There's nothing mechanically different about the game. It's just kind of what they choose. I usually run it like this because locking people in can often be upsetting in some ways. As they share piety. Which means they at least know that they both answer to a deity of some sort. And they're pretty much in the same boat. Okay. You know, we're pretty much going down the paladin route. Okay. So the paladin monk, sabbatical society. They're both out for a long walk that they want to end. The monk actually wants to, having reached the pinnacle, wants to go home. So does the paladin. That's a common touchstone. They're both essentially on sabbatical, and now they want to head back. All right, paladin, wizard. That's a question. The wizard kind of keeps their background close to the chest, but we'll call it wary. We'll call them wary allies. They know they need each other, and that should be enough. Should be enough. Barring a betrayal. Since they don't know each other's backgrounds, that's what it's going to have to be. Alright, paladin and, what do we have? The bard. Oh boy, the bard's crazy. Alright, in fact, let's go with that angle on that. You're crazy. They both see each other as demented, and they both see each other as demented. And out of touch, but beggars can't be choosers. Especially in Carceri. Alright, so the paladin was kind of a touchstone, a known quantity. I know what they are going to be like as a character, and that reflects well off the others. Now we have to figure out all the other connections there. I'm going to choose the rogue for the next few, the rogue and the cleric. We're going to go with, that's weird. So, they both see each other as being kind of outsiders and unusual. They're both fish out of water, or will soon be. There are worse allies. Okay, because the cleric is perfectly at home in Carceri, but knows that once they get out, they're going to need a lot of help to acclimate to the real world. Whereas the rogue was fully in the outside world, and Carceri is kind of just new to him or her. And that's their touchstone, is that they could really help each other now and later. All right, so the rogue and the was it the wizard? Bard, wizard. Oh, jeez, the monk. Got skills. They both look at each other as professionals, and they're not wrong. They both know what the heck they're doing, and are useful for their variety of tasks. The rogue, wizard, whatever. Opposite forces. They would never get along except for the circumstance. And it shows. Their worlds do not intersect. So there we go. They simply don't. So that'll be a bit of a rough back and forth with the characters. At least I'd like there to be some friction, and there'll be plenty of friction without being silly about it. Although, admittedly, most groups don't. They don't allow a lot of friction, role playing, to get in the way of completing the story. Everyone knows that they're there to figure something out. In this case, it's how to escape Carceri, and they'll probably bend themselves to that right up to the end. But I'm planning on that, so it'll be fun. Finally, we have the rogue and the bard, and we'll use crazy like a fox. Hey, sanity is overrated, and being unpredictable is an asset. They both see their mercurial natures. Mercurial. I may use that instead of crazy like a fox. We'll see. We'll see. Because the label applies both ways. They both see each other as kind of crazy. The bard for just because of the way they act and the way they want to, and where they're going with the whole I'm going to leave and I'm going to sing songs and it'll be great on the wider world, even though you don't know anything about it anymore, and we're kind of part of a decadent cult for a while that centered around one individual who then died, and well, then you were free. Whereas the bard sees the rogue as you had a fortune, you had a whole bunch of amazing stuff that you could have settled for, and you didn't. You had to have a throne. He knows that doesn't work out too well. But hey, whatever. If it works for you, it works for you. Okay, so we've done the rogue, we've done the paladin as a touchstone. Let's do the cleric and the monk. Hidden secrets. No, we're going to do mind the gap. There are always gaps in knowledge, even when filled. They touch upon the scholarly side. Because the cleric is worships the god of the gaps, whereas the monk is though from opposite directions. The cleric is about those gaps and what they represent, whereas the monk is about filling them and figuring them out. Alright, so then we have the cleric and the wizard. Oh boy. Let's go with duty binds. There's something familiar. Each other. And they know that each labors under a different burden toward the same end. The cleric is looking to escape Carceri to bring the deity more power, essentially. Whereas the former angel, who's a wizard, is trying to escape to bring magic and enlightenment to the world. They're both needed. The end times. Okay, let's see. Then we have the cleric and the bard. Don't get it. They just don't understand each other. Shouting. They're a shouting match, but they like arguing about it. In a way, the cleric and the bard, given the table organization, they'll be at the base of the horseshoe with me in between them. I'd like them to have a common touchstone so that they can talk across the table and keep things lively. but they like arguing about it because they have very different views of the world, but they both in it for the tales that must be told. Tales that must be told. Okay, so we've done all of those. Then we're going to go to the monk and the wizard. The monk and the wizard. They are close to the table, and they are exceptions are exceptional. Both are acknowledged masters, and that cultivates respect. So they're friends from work, essentially. Alright, exceptions are exceptional, and both are acknowledged masters, and that cultivates respect between them. Then we have the monk and the bard. They, I don't think, get along with that. How would we put that? Binding and undoing, chaos and order. Chaos and order. Get on. It's fire and water. That makes steam. They really don't get on. Fire and water, that makes steam. Seeing the worst in the other. Whether too tied up in routine or not having any boundaries. Okay. Because the bard is going to not have a lot of boundaries. It's going to sing about a lot of things, and they have some equipment that's very creepy, and is outgoing, whereas the monk is best. So I think that'll work well. Lastly, we've got the wizard and the bard. Hey, magic. That's their bond. They both use the weave of magic. That's how spellcasters interact with the world of magic, through a weave that's defined in the universe that was made by a particular deity, and that's how it's used. It's used specifically in certain ways and for certain effects. You can't really do too much chaos magic or spurious magic. Everything has to be ritualized and formulated and so on. But they both are masters, so much still to learn from one another. Wizard doesn't mind the bard's sad origin. They've seen worse. The bard wants to get at the wizard's secret, because those are always good. Okay. And there we go. Those are the character interactions between the 6 players who will be playing the various characters. We're going to get to equipment. We're going to get to motivations. We're going to get to some of the little perks that I'm going to give various characters so that they will stand out otherwise, without complicating things too much. Because that's one thing when you're dealing with level 20 characters, is they have a lot of options. They're extremely powerful. They can do things that you really can't anticipate. I'm going to try to crimp them down as much as possible in terms of not throwing a whole bunch of possible spells at players, not throwing a whole bunch of bizarre equipment. Carceri is going to take care of much of that, because if I were to run this game anywhere outside of the bounds of a prison plane, it would just be, you can go where you want, you can do what you want. The world would, I'd have to basically ad-lib everything, because, with plane shift and teleport and contacts galore and riches and treasure at their disposal, there would be no limits, and it would just be free-form role-playing with the character sheets only really as a suggestion. But that has been Alan Develops, the first episode therein, and we'll see how far we go with this and how nice we can put it all together so that I can craft my GenCon game and have it in time to be play tested before I head to GenCon, preferably twice. It's worked in the past, and it should work in the present. But thank you very much for sticking with me through this, and I hope you have a good day.